Garmagat, Chair. So I would like to thank Minister Madigan for coming here this morning and to hear this commencement matter. Minister, no schools have been assessed to be included for extra supports under the DEIS scheme since 2015 and only a small number added in 2017. Currently, schools are not being assessed. I suppose I'd like to find out an update on the DEIS resource allocation system and the timeline for its completion, publication and implementation. When we speak about DEIS, DEIS encompasses a number of different types of supports, from reduced class size, additional funding, but really importantly, access to literacy, numeracy programmes, access to the homeschool community liaison, the HSCL coordinator, access to school completion programmes, which means that students and children will stay in school longer and actually achieve results or go as far as actual final year exams, access to the school meals programme. Now, I suppose to clarify, the HSCL and the SCP both fall under, I suppose, TUSLA, Educational Welfare Services. So there's a link there and a partnership with the Department of Children. There's also a link with the School Meals Programme under the Department of Social Protection. But neither of these departments can actually allocate schools to get these programmes unless designation has been given from the Department of Education. The Minister of Education has noted that this is dependent on an ESRI review in 2015 to bring forward a new methodology of assessment. And this is great, but unfortunately right now we don't have a methodology for assessing any of these schools. A Department of Education publication, DEIS identification process, noted, and I quote, "The model also identified a number of schools in disadvantaged areas currently not within DEIS, whose level of disadvantage is significantly higher than schools already in DEIS," end quote. A Social Justice Ireland report based on a 2019 survey just recently published last week pointed to a decrease of people living below the poverty line. However, that's still 20% of children in poverty. All across this country, and especially in the past year, more families, even more that have been dealt with in that survey, are dealing with disadvantage, loss of income, and this has all impacted on child poverty. If children are going to school hungry, then we need to act. If children are falling behind in reading and maths, then we need to act. We need to ensure that every child has the same opportunity in the classroom, the ability to focus attention, the reserves to sit in school for the full day, and the supports to avoid dropout at secondary school level. The Minister for Education has already noted that this review has to be completed before any supports are available. I don't accept that. There must be a possibility to have a tiered level of support available for schools most in need, particularly when this crisis affects those most vulnerable, women, single parents and children. In 2016, Pobble Deprivation Index, Bannislow was listed as having areas as extremely and very disadvantaged, the highest on the scale. And we have a DEIS Band 1 primary school. However, we don't have support for any post-primary in our area. How is this possible in a large urban area? If I might quote a principle here, we struggle to support our most vulnerable families in the absence of an allocation for a homeschool community liaison teacher. We try our best, but it's an impossible task to ask full-time teachers, assistant principals and senior leadership personnel to provide the level of family support that is necessary to these families. We have a large number, nearly 25% enrolment coming from the DEIS Band 1 primary school, and we meet students on a daily basis with no lunch. No lunch. The school frequently has to buy food and distribute it without any support. I also spoke to an HSCL person, a coordinator in our area. She spoke about the retention of pupils following transfer to secondary school is really low, particularly amongst children who've had to leave school after having huge levels of support at primary school level through DEIS Band Level 1. I want to put a programme in place, Minister, that supports children to have a fighting chance from different backgrounds, and we as a state have a role here to provide hope and supports to children and students have a fighting chance of an education. I call on the Minister, in the absence of this review, which is happening since 2015, to set up immediate tiered levels of support for schools in crisis with partner departments of social protection for access to the hot school meals and to the Department of Children for access to HSCL and Schools Completion Programme, the Schools Completion Coordinator as well in the Bannislow area. I acknowledge the wonderful supports in place at primary school Minister in our urban town area, but how does disadvantage disappear at age 11? Thank you.
Gurmagat, and I want to thank the Senator for raising this issue. Delivering equality of opportunity in schools, or DEIS, is the main policy initiative of my department to tackle educational disadvantage at any level. And the DEIS plan sets out the vision for interventions in the critical area of educational disadvantage policy and is based on the findings of an extensive review of the DEIS programme, which involved consultations with all relevant stakeholders. The programme for government commits to completing the new DEIS identification model, ensuring the extension of DEIS status to schools that are identified as being suitable, And a key part of the DEIS plan was the introduction of a new DEIS identification process based on an objective, statistic-based model to determine which schools merit inclusion in the programme. And as the Senator may be aware, following the application of this model in 2017, and indeed you mentioned this yourself, a further 79 schools were included in the DEIS programme and 30 schools were upgraded from Band 2 to Band 1 status. And in terms of the further extension of the DEIS programme to more schools, an extensive body of work has been undertaken in terms of the refinement of this model based on the latest school enrolment data and data available from Census 2016 under the HP Deprivation Index. A detailed quality analysis of the data has been carried out by members of the DEIS Technical Group, which contains representatives of the Department's Statistics and Social Inclusion Units, the Inspectorate and the Education Research Centre. And my department has commenced a consultation process with education stakeholder representatives on the technical aspects and the implementation of this model, and work is now ongoing on final elements of the model. So it is envisaged that this will provide the basis for the development and application of a refined DEIS resource allocation model to ultimately match resources to identified need. And until this work is complete, it is not intended to extend the DEIS programme to any further schools. But I note the Senator's concerns, and I wish to reassure her that the Department is working to ensure that those most in need of support can be provided with the necessary resources to ensure that they have every opportunity to benefit from education in order to help them fulfil their potential in life. For example, the Department will spend approximately $2 billion on making additional provision for children with special education needs, which I know is an area of particular interest to you, Senator, meaning the number of special classes, special education teachers and SNAs are now at unprecedented levels. And Budget 2021 allowed for a further reduction in the primary staffing schedule, bringing this to a historically low level of 25:1 pupil-teacher ratio, and overall over 1,665 new teaching posts will be created this year. My department also spends approximately $215 million on general capitation for schools, which represents an increase of 5% last year in 2019 and a further 2.5% increase for the 2020-21 school term. And a further $18 million is allocated to schools under the free education scheme in order to provide assistance for books, including book rental schemes. I know that all of these supports should ensure that every student receives every opportunity to fulfil their potential in the education system. I know that there are schools in Ballinasloe, you have Scull I Cianahe, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Cianahe, Art Scull Fuera and Garbally College, and I know that they're non-DEIS schools. And there is obviously a rationale to include a school based on concentrated disadvantage, and it's based on the existence of a multiplier effect, whereby pupils attending a school with a high concentration of students from disadvantaged backgrounds have poorer academic outcomes, even taking account of individual social background. So social mix of a school matters, providing a rationale for prioritising supports for schools which cater for those with a lower socio-economic background, and indeed international evidence supports this also. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for the update and the acknowledgement of funding in the area. The DEIS identification process and inclusion of schools with children at risk is urgently required. It is needed to ensure that all schools are appropriately equipped to tackle educational disadvantage, and we need this at primary and post-primary level across the country. But I suppose, Minister, if I could ask you, is there a possibility there for tiered supports? I understand that the review still has to be completed. I'm not clear really on the timeline associated with that, but is it possible that we could look at the Hot School Meals programme under the Department of Social Protection, or the allocation of a HSCL coordinator where principals are struggling, particularly this year with COVID, and that would come from the Department of Children, under TUSLA. Is there a way of considering, could we look at tiered supports in advance of the review programme coming out for schools in crisis? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Senator, and I understand your concerns in relation to supports, and it's important to stress that there are a range of resources available from the department to support schools in dealing with their needs. And these are schools outside of DEIS, and they can still avail of supports, including special education resource teachers and SNAs and supports from NEPs also. In relation to hot school meals, I will bring that to Minister Foley and see if there is scope around that. There may well be resources there that I'm unaware of, but I will certainly speak to the Minister for Education around that. I don't have a timeline as yet for the end of the consultation, and until there is an outcome from that consultation from the DEIS technical group, I don't see any expansion in relation to any other school being eligible for DEIS at present until that is refined and that is completed. The department has commenced, as I said, the consultation with educational stakeholder reps on the technical aspects and the implementation of this model, and the work is obviously ongoing now on the final elements of the model. Cormac.